Hey, welcome, jerks. It's 7:03 p.m. and we're live tonight. Mike Crawford. It's been 2 weeks since I've had the diagnosis for COVID, and I gotta admit, I'm starting to feel better. I am starting to finally really feel better. And I don't have any shows planned beyond tonight, but tonight should be a good one. And then I'm gonna come back with a bunch of other shows. We've had some good shows recently, even through COVID on my much reduced schedule. Had some great shows. I really appreciate all our guests, Bederow and Mazza on the last one. Unbelievable, Attorney Bederow. And my boy Mazza. I was thinking about even having them come up tonight. I'm not sure yet because we've got a guest. We've got a special guest you see on the screen right now. And this is going to be a fun show for us in a little, in a lot of respects because we've been covering this Karen Read. And so many of us have been not pleased with the Norfolk County District Attorney, Michael Morrissey. And now we have an opportunity to have our say. And this is the fun time. This is the It's early. This is wicked early. But it's exciting to see a website, a campaign ready to go. Djuna for Justice. You can look up the website. Djuna. It's DJUNA Perkins. DjunaPerkins.com. I'm going to put it in the chat right now. And my big thing, if you like what you hear tonight, we've donated to Karen Read, the defense funds. We've donated to Turtle Boy defense funds. We've donated to Duck defense funds, all this other crap. I think tonight we should try to raise some money. Michael Morrissey has a lot of money. Let's send a message tonight. Let's send a message to the candidates, too, that we care enough about this that we're going to donate money tonight. It's right there, the website, top of the right. When you hit the website in the chat, you'll see the donate button. If I'm happy about tonight's interview, I'm going to give a donation. And I think that's what people should be thinking about tonight. And if you have questions, let's bring them up tonight. There's going to be some good questions, hopefully. And we have the candidate. She was having a little internet issue, so hopefully we'll work that out. And she's going to be good to go. She's a former prosecutor who has decided to run for Norfolk County District Attorney against Michael Morrissey. Morrissey has a big campaign fund. So, again, donations are going to make a big difference in this campaign. I'm sure of it. And small donations, just if we have hundreds of people giving $10, $20, $50, $100, that goes a long way. That sends a big message, too. So that's my pitch to you guys tonight. And you ladies, if you can, donate some money if you like what you hear tonight. So let's bring her up. She's running for district attorney. She's the first candidate we're going to have on the show that's running for Norfolk County District Attorney, challenging Michael Morrissey. I really like the letter. I'm going to put that up on the screen. We're gonna from, I think it was Lawyers Weekly. She did an op-ed, sent a letter in, and it was published. We're going to go over that tonight. But it noted at least 3 different instances of issues with District Attorney Michael Morrissey. And so hopefully we'll talk about that and some other things tonight with her. Let's bring her up. She's a former prosecutor. Djuna Perkins. DjunaPerkins.com is the website. Welcome, Djuna. How you doing tonight?
Great, thanks. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you for being here. Tell us about yourself and why you decided to run for district attorney against a longtime incumbent named Michael Morrissey.
Sure. So, as you said at the outset, I am a former prosecutor. I've been a lawyer for nearly 35 years, and my entire professional life has been spent working to hold offenders accountable for some of the worst conduct imaginable: sexual assault, domestic violence, sexual harassment, and discrimination, just in a variety of settings. So the first 10 years of my career, I was a prosecutor, and I was first in the Attorney General's office under Scott Harshbarger. And then I was in positions including the Safe Neighborhood Initiative, the Narcotics and Special Investigations Unit, and appeals. And then I spent the next 5 years as an assistant district attorney in Suffolk County, which is Boston, under Ralph Martin. And in that office, in my final position, I was the chief of the domestic violence unit. in which I had oversight responsibility for all domestic violence prosecutions in Suffolk County, including sexual assault. And then after that, the next 10 years, I was a civil litigator representing primarily crime victims in cases like clergy sex abuse cases, representing victims of childhood sexual abuse, against camps, schools, individuals. I also represented the family of Jalissa Brisman, who was the victim of alleged Craigslist killer Philip Markoff. I also, during that time, wrote an amicus brief to the SJC that helped preserve an important rule in sexual assault cases. And then after I left there, I started my own practice in 2012, where I'm an outside consultant to educational institutions, government agencies, and workplaces in investigations of sexual misconduct that result in internal discipline. So Title IX, many people now know the phrase Title IX. So I'm an outside investigator and hearing officer in campus sexual assault cases and do similar investigations for companies and government agencies, including police departments. So all that time, so I've basically done the same kind of work for my entire career. And based on my experience, first in the DA's office and the AG's office, and then later, I know what good prosecution is. I've worked for some really highly respected leaders. One of my former colleagues in the DA's office said to me the other day, during our time in the DA's office was really considered the halcyon days of prosecution. And so knowing what I know, the last 2 years, I've been watching the decisions coming out of the Norfolk DA's office, and it's been really, really, really troubling. And I became a lawyer to rectify injustice. I've spent my life doing that. And I strongly believe that if there's a problem out there that I can fix, it's my job to roll up my sleeves and do it.
Awesome. People are already commenting that they want you hired. They want you to start immediately in the chat. It looks like you're already winning votes here. It looks like some from Canada. They're like, I wish I could vote from Canada.
I hope you're in Norfolk County.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be some from Norfolk, but there's also some Canadians apparently that want to vote for you. A question that came up, we'll just throw it out there. Do you think that college campuses should refer sexual assault cases to the police instead of handling internally?
No, the answer to that is no, because first of all, it's really up to the victim of crime to decide whether or not we owe them that agency to make that decision on their own. Number one. Number two, it's only a very small percentage of cases that are even prosecutable as crimes. The colleges can ban and discipline for a far broader range of conduct than what actually would constitute a crime. And they can do it in far more creative ways. So, if you go to the police, if it's a prosecution, you can only get, jail or probation. If you do college discipline, you can get much more creative solutions that actually might have a chance for somebody to not violate again and actually go to jail, but to maybe fix themselves before going out and doing something worse.
That's true, too, because the only time I got in trouble with college was for cannabis in the dorms. and the cops were, just it was the J board. It was the internal college board that we got punished. The police, whatever. College kids smoking, So it's funny that it's true. It's the J boards and internally probably get just as much return for the victim, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about this letter that you wrote. It was, I think, for Lawyers Weekly. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you wrote it, basically there was like 3 parts of it. The first part, you were criticizing the Karen Reed case, the way that it was handled. What specifically have you not liked about Michael Morrissey and his handling of the Karen Reed, and what would you do differently?
So, first of all, the first time I actually started paying attention to the Karen Reed trial was the videotape last summer. That is, a prosecutor has an obligation not to make any statement that could significantly or materially prejudice a defendant. So that's why you don't hear prosecutors talking a lot about the substance of their cases, except an initial press conference and then in the courtroom. That's really all you're supposed to do, because otherwise, whatever you say could harm a defendant who's presumed innocent. So when he made that videotape, I mean, there was a couple things that bothered me. One was, if it was his attempt to say, stop intimidating witnesses. If you think that you have probable cause to believe that someone is committing a crime like intimidation of a witness, you don't need to tell the public about it. Just go and do it. Just go and make file the charge and bring the case. But more importantly, what was very bizarre about that videotape is that in it he talks about the evidence specifically about the evidence in the case. He vouches for the credibility of witnesses, including Trooper Proctor, which even at the time, even if you didn't know what we all came to learn later about Trooper Proctor, it's entirely inappropriate to vouch for the credibility of a witness, because people could be in the jury pool who then say, well, the district attorney said he believed Trooper Proctor, so I'm going to believe Trooper Proctor. And that is way inappropriate. So that's what really got my alarm bells going off first. So then the next thing the other thing that I found troubling was the decision to proceed on both the OUI manslaughter charge, OUI motor vehicle homicide charge, and also a second-degree murder charge. And that's because the elements of the crime conflict with each other. Second-degree murder requires intent to kill. So you have to be consciously able to say, I want that person dead, and now I'm going to do it. And OUI manslaughter is kind of the opposite. It's saying, I am so intoxicated that I could not even drive well enough. And what they did was, so normally that would not happen. You might charge both of those things at the beginning because you don't exactly know how the case is going to pan out. But by the time of the trial, you usually are going to make a decision about which one to proceed on. And they didn't do that. And the evidence, and I didn't watch the whole trial. I have a feeling your viewers have much more granular knowledge of those details than I do. But what I did see was a big mess of evidence that all conflicted with each other. So they presented evidence from medical evidence that she was as much as 0.29 blood alcohol content at the time that she left his house or the house, and yet also, which is extremely high. I mean, the legal limit for blood alcohol content to presume that you are guilty of OUI is 0.1. So 0.29 is 3 times that limit. So if that's true, it's pretty hard to imagine that she could form the specific intent to kill. So they just sort of were throwing this confusing situation at the jury. And what that does is it leaves the jury confused and without a coherent theory to make a decision about. And what that does then is leave this family, the family of John O'Keefe, totally with his death unresolved and the truth unknown, and the truth of what happened really unknown. So that was one. What was another one? There's definitely more. I would have to look at what was in the letter.
It's funny. I just noted you have a lot of interest tonight because we have some of the biggest YouTube creators around this case. Melanie Little is watching. She's in the chat. Criminal defense attorney Mark Bederow. He's actually Aiden's defense attorney. He's watching. He's like one of our biggest guests. Olivia Nile. It's amazing to see that everyone they're into this tonight. It's definitely getting a lot of attention. So hopefully you get on some of those other shows. I would love to see you on Melanie Little. If she hits you up, definitely say yes to her. She's also an attorney, and she's phenomenal. And she's watching tonight. She's got a huge channel. I remembered another reason. Yes, go ahead.
Another reason was, so the district attorney has a continuing duty to evaluate evidence. So there were a number of occasions during the trial before the trial where they should have done that. So for example, those FBI accident reconstruction reports, and the Trooper Proctor messages, the district attorney's office would have received those at least weeks, if not months, before the actual trial began. Once you had that evidence, you had a duty to decide, first of all, whether those, maybe you disagree with the FBI accident reconstruction reports, but you have to figure out why. You have to make a good argument about why they should or should not, why they shouldn't apply, or you have to revisit whether or not you're really bringing the appropriate charges. And then as to the Trooper Proctor messages, those were just beyond the pale of unconscionable. And, it's clear evidence of bias against Reed. And this is coming from somebody who I want people held accountable for bad crimes. So, but I want it to be done in a way that is fair and that respects due process, because without due process, we have nothing. And nobody will ever trust the outcome of a case, nobody will ever trust convictions if there is no due process that supports them.
Now, in this letter to the editor that you wrote, you also mentioned about Sandra Birchmore. What would you say about the Sandra Birchmore situation with respect to DA Morrissey?
So if the decisions in the Karen Read trial were disturbing, what happened to Sandra Birchmore and the failure to investigate her death properly was heart-stopping. Honestly, I mean, that was the thing. I might have watched the Karen Read trial and just thought, well, this is bizarre. I'll vote for someone else next time. But Sandra Birchmore was I don't know. I don't know if you read it, but when the FBI indicted Matthew Farwell, they filed an affidavit with the indictment that outlines all the evidence that they had, all the investigative steps that they took. And when you read that, it becomes crystal clear that like 90% of the evidence that was used by the feds to indict Farwell was available to state authorities within of a short time, maybe days, weeks of her death, certainly not 3 years. And so what is really unconscionable about that is that they did not do more to rule out suicide.
Now, I'm just thinking, things are coming to me that you mentioned too. When you mentioned the ARCA guys on the Karen Read case, would you, like, if you had that ARCA report, you knew what they were going to say, I don't even know if you'd be able to, but if you were the DA, would you go talk to those ARCA guys and kind of get the lowdown on it? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And then you have to figure out, is there a way that I can distinguish this accident reconstruction report than the one I got? Do I have to choose one of them? And then you have to sort of recalibrate your whole case on that new evidence. You're not supposed to just say, this is my view and I'm sticking to it and I will never think another thought. You're supposed to have an open mind.
Yeah, it seems like the ARCA, I mean, that's the biggest thing for me in the Karen Read case. It's the plastic. It's like 500 pounds to break that kind of plastic, and a bone breaks in like 100 pounds or something. So it's like there's no broken bone. So it's like, how did that plastic break? They never explain that. It just doesn't make sense to me. And I think the ARCA guys, for me, as just being an average guy, just trying to that's what just convinced me. It's like when you have these guys on this level coming to that conclusion, the car never hit the body. I mean, that should be the end.
Right. I mean, it's normal or not normal, typical for a DA's office to be skeptical of evidence that a defense attorney, that a defendant might present. But to have another prosecutor's office and the FBI, issuing you have to look at that like that. That's not the same thing as a defense attorney. And I'm not saying you shouldn't look at the defense attorney's report, evidence either. You should. It's just, it's just even more bizarre that they didn't.
Do you think that Karen Read's defense team paints the picture that Michael Morrissey is the target of the feds? Do you think that's true? Do you think that's likely, and that's why he's going so hardcore? Is that kind of explain things, you think?
I have no idea. I have no inside knowledge of either what the feds are doing or Michael Morrissey. Don't know him. I'm a total outsider.
Now, did you decide to run for this office because of these scandals, or were you already running before all this?
No, I decided to run because of these scandals.
Okay. Seems like a good reason to.
Right. I mean, and look, like I said, justice is really important to me, and it is not one size. Justice is not one size fits all, and so it makes me really mad.
So. Yeah, facts matter.
Right.
Every situation is different. That's what from talking to all the lawyers that we have on the show, that's what they always drill down to us. It's like it's hard to compare cases and things because the details are never the same. Yeah.
Right. And the second you make a blanket rule or a blanket policy, you get a case that is going to make that policy not make sense. That you're going to get the case that should be the exception to the rule, and everyone will agree that should be the exception to the rule. But now you're stuck with this policy. So really, every case should be evaluated based on its own merits, and according to principles of justice.
Now, Attorney Bederow, who has been like a big friend of our show, he's a guy who grew up in Framingham. He worked for the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. He was an ADA. Now he's in criminal defense. Now he's helping out in Massachusetts as well with the Turtle Boy case. He has like sent this letter out to, basically the special prosecutor about Michael Morrissey and about this he was using a private email to talk to judges, basically, to ask the judges to do things with a private email. It seems very strange. They're asking for the information. Have you ever heard of that? Do you think that's unusual too, to not use your official email to talk to judges?
Yes, because there's a public records law for a reason. And, a public records request to the official DA's office email would all be discoverable. And so it would be odd to use, maybe you make a mistake. That happens. My phone defaults sometimes to other email addresses. But if it's intentional, that's a problem.
There was also some things going on with campaign fundraising in terms of like Adam Lally, the ADA, and some other folks who work in the office giving campaign contributions to Michael Morrissey.
Mm-hmm.
People are pointing out that not being really that ethical. Would you take contributions from people who are subordinates of you if you were elected as DA?
It's very funny that you ask that, because I believe that both Scott Harshbarger and Ralph Martin refused to take donations from employees, and I would do the same.
Awesome. I love it. That's such a there's also like been the whole thing with the retrial of Karen Reed. They've hired a special prosecutor for that as well. And it seems like because they don't have someone that can actually try the case, it seems really strange. Well, I mean, would you be hiring outside prosecutors to try cases like this? Is that something that you think makes sense? Or
it is an odd decision. So first of all, I know Hank Brennan. We worked together in the DA's office. He's a very good lawyer. He was a very good prosecutor. But it is a weird decision because, first of all, a special prosecutor is usually only used when you have a conflict. And there is no, when there's a conflict of interest between if for the DA's office to actually prosecute it, there was no conflict here. You also want a special prosecutor to be completely independent, which Hank Brennan is not going to be independent. He's working with the existing staff in the DA's office. Yes, if you didn't have confidence in your staff to do the job in the first place, why didn't you take care of that 2 years ago instead of now? And now it feels kind of like political pandering, really, just to mollify people and not a genuine decision.
That's a good point.
Even because of the timing. So.
Someone asked, don't think that's legal, but maybe you could answer that. Can they donate from other countries to your campaign?
You cannot. You got
to be U.S., right? Got to be a U.S. citizen. You can donate.
Thanks for the thought, though. But tell your friends who live in the U.S.
Yeah. Tell everyone from the U.S. in the chat to donate, especially Norfolk County people. Let's talk about, because there's been some other cases too. You mentioned in your letter, I'm glad you mentioned the Braintree instance, because I've looked into that, and that was another situation where law enforcement seemed like they got special, preferential treatment, and kind of a disturbing case of, something that happened to a young person with, kind of harassment with pictures, I believe, or videos. And the DA was really not nice to the parents on this, right? Tell us about that situation, because you mentioned it in your letter as well.
Yeah, that was a really troubling case that was published in the Globe sometime this spring. And that was another one where I was like, what is going on here? So it was I think a 12-year-old boy who lived in Braintree who was neurodivergent. He was at a friend's house over the summer. And two boys who were his supposed friends convinced him to take his clothes off, and they took a picture of him. And then after that, when school started again, they distributed this photo around school. And then, according to the article, someone told the dad about it, and then the dad talked to the son about it. And it turned out that at least one of the two boys his dad was a police officer. And so the person who in the same town, the person who investigated the event was a police officer, was the friend of the father, and the two boys were, and the detective who investigated, or the police officer who investigated it, allowed the dads to interview their sons, which is an incredible no-no in any case. And then they declined to prosecute. So there is a crime. No one is supposed to be in possession of pornography, of nude photos of children. I mean, no one, not even other kids. Like that is a crime. But under Massachusetts law, and so that's true in the federal law. Under Massachusetts law, there's a slight distinction where you have to have sexual intent. So I'm not sure what they made the decision based on. The article didn't say if there was a reason or not. They just said no crime. And so then the family is confused, understandably, and upset. Like, how could somebody take advantage of my kid like this? How could they conduct this biased investigation? And they want an explanation. So they meet with the DA's office, and according to the Globe article, the DA's office said nope, no prosecution, and were kind of mean about it. And also didn't provide the family with other avenues, like, at the very least, the family could have gone to the school district and asked for a Title IX investigation, because it probably would have qualified as a Title IX investigation, even though it happened over the summer and not at school. If it affects kids at school, and certainly these relationships were formed at school, then yes, you can do a Title IX investigation. So then this poor family is told by the school that they can't do anything. And I think it's only when they go to the mayor or something that the mayor convinces the school to investigate in some way. But anyway, I think that the most disturbing part of this was just being poorly treated by the district attorney's office, which, even if you're going to say, I'm sorry, we can't prosecute, you are owed respect, empathy, and a good explanation.
Absolutely. At minimum,
right?
Just a human level.
Exactly. And so to be dismissed is really wrong.
Absolutely. There's been some other stuff, obviously, with the Michael Proctor and the text messages and the text chain. Michael Proctor is obviously.
Where'd you go?
Am I gone? I'm still here. We have an internet connections again. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. We're good.
We're good. Michael Proctor had some, issues with the texts and some of the guys receiving texts from him. Can you still hear me? Yeah. Looks like we might have lost her for a second.
Now I can. Can you repeat the question, though? I had to move.
Okay. Michael Proctor had some issues with his text and the text chain.
Yes.
He's obviously on ice right now, but some of the other people in that office, the district attorney's office with the Mass State Police, for instance, are still there. What would you do if you took over with those guys? Like, one attorney said that clean house, to get rid of them all. What would you do if you came in and you're dealing with, these guys that were on the text chain, most of them, and didn't say anything except thought it was funny?
Yeah. So I think supervision is obviously a huge issue in that unit. And, first of all, it's great that there is a new head of that unit has been appointed. I think that's a great thing. But I also agree that there's no way, after all this, I think that whole unit needs to be replaced and new troopers assigned. There may well be troopers in that unit who are great workers and have good and great ethics and integrity. But I just feel like the community is not going to trust it until it's just all new blood.
Yeah, they used the word fumigate. The audience brought it up. That was the word I was looking for. That's exactly what Attorney Bederow said. He thinks they should fumigate. Besides, that situation, there's also the Turtle Boy situation and a bunch of other people too who are being charged with felonies for doing things that I think maybe are finable, like littering. Like, to me, I don't support people throwing stuff, but it's basically, to me, they've been way overcharged with felony witness intimidation for things that seem to be free speech. How would you handle this situation with all of these different cases against Turtle Boy and Rich Schiffer and all of these other folks that are just getting, it seems like, harassed because they have the wrong political speech in town, in the town of Canton?
So mostly I feel like there's a fine line between free speech and harassment. So as a domestic violence prosecutor, I can't tell you how many cases I had where a woman would come in and say, okay, my boyfriend left a knife in front of my doorstep, let's say. And I can't prove that it was him. I didn't see him. I don't have a ring camera or anything, but I know it was him. We all know it was probably him. But if you brought that to the police station, they would say, sorry, ma'am, there's no threat there, even though there's a knife right there. We can't really, make the connection and everything. So I feel like the more directed you get at a person and the more virulent, like the louder you scream and the meaner you scream, the more it starts to seem like criminal harassment. However, what I at least have heard about the rubber ducky situation, which is these rubber ducks placed outside people's homes or businesses, certainly with Trooper Proctor, I do not see that at all as intimidation of a witness, because first of all, he's a police officer. So I think your intimidation level has to be a little higher than that. He's a public figure and he's involved in a very public case. So whatever these rubber ducks mean, I don't think it rises to the level of intimidation of a witness for him. With the Albert family, yeah, I think even there, it's really tough to make the argument that these ducks rise to the level of intimidation of a witness. But I think beyond that, what bothers me about the rubber duck situation is, if only, and I realize I'm pretty sure this is a different department than the one involved in the Birchmore case, but if only they used this kind of investigative power and resources on the things that they should have, like investigating the death of Sandra Birchmore, making good decisions in the Karen Reed case, and investigating it well. It's like, it feels more like it's just, I took a position that this is what the case is, and I'm going to defend it to the death.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because the investigation of one of the guys, right, the rich, they treat him like he was Al Qaeda. Like they pulled like so many surveillance. They were pulling like telephone surveillance. They were pulling restaurant surveillance. They had guys following them. I ran into him. This guy, I didn't even know him. I ran into him on the street, just at a protest. I interviewed him on the street. They transcribed my interview. It was like 5 pages. I couldn't believe how much detail they put to get the guy that was placing ducks in front of someone's pizza business. That's really all he said he's done. Like, I don't think he actually did the home stuff. I don't know if other people did, but it just seems like such overkill, and the amount of time and money into something like that, when we know how poorly they did on things that actually matter.
Right. I mean, this job is serious. And these situations, homicides are serious. Homicides, domestic violence, sexual assault, hate crimes, fraud. There's a lot of serious work to be done. And that's what we need to spend our time and resources on.
There's been other rumors too about some other things, like this developer, this O'Connell guy, his connections to Morrissey. I've looked him up, and the family seems like they have a lot of legal issues. The O'Connell family. It seems like so many of these people. Have you heard of anything on that angle too? Are you looking at that, or is that something you're just not aware of?
Nope, not aware of.
Yeah. It seems like there's been a lot of like little hidden scandals with Michael Morrissey over the years that are like coming to people's attention now because of the spotlight. I guess what. There's a lot more I want to ask you. Like, what do you think about the ACLU has jumped in on the Karen Reed case in terms of the SJC appeal? What do you think? Have you followed that? Do you understand what's going on there with the SJC appeal?
So a little bit, and I will talk about that a little bit, because I think it's very confusing for lay people to understand what is going on and why it's not such a simple thing as like, let's go ask the jurors. So I was an appellate attorney for a little while. I will not say I'm an expert at all. However, basically the idea of the sanctity of jury deliberations is like enormous. There's all kinds of cases that say we never invade the jury deliberations. We never want to ask what the jury has done or thought about or talked about. And the reason is because if once you do that in one case, and it could ruin the sanctity of convictions. And at a certain point, there's a huge value in closure, whatever the outcome is, good or bad. Whether you agree with the outcome or disagree with the outcome, there's a big value in just resolving a case one way or the other. And if you start investigating looking into what jurors thought about or talked about, then it discourages jurors from participating in the future because they don't necessarily want to talk about how they felt about the jury verdict, and they shouldn't have to. What they do in that room should be private and only held onto themselves. So here's the other part. So it's also a novel issue in Massachusetts about whether or not the judge should have asked them about on each specific verdict whether or not they had a guilty or not guilty verdict. And there's this sort of conservative feeling that, because of this value of not invading what the jury deliberated about, not to do that, not to ask questions, not to go back to ask the jury. And so there's no cases in Massachusetts that actually talk about it. So it isn't a surprise that it's going to the SJC because it's a more complicated issue than the layperson would think. So it's a very long, boring answer, but the short answer is it's complicated.
And do you think that those charges should get tossed? Do you think that the judge should be asked to go back to the jury? What do you think should happen here?
So I would not have the legal expertise to really answer that question, I don't think. And also, I wouldn't comment on it because the case may still be pending if I were elected, and then it would be inappropriate for me to comment, one way or another about her guilt or innocence.
Let me ask you another question. This has bothered me for a while. This question that just came up. They said, do you think it's appropriate for state troopers who claim they're victims of Aidan Kearney to also be investigating him?
So, assuming that this is true, which I don't know whether or not,
I could tell you it's definitely true, yeah.
It sounds like a conflict to me, yes.
Yeah, there's a couple of them. One of them just got reassigned, the Tully guy. But Buchanan, yeah, I mean, it just seems very strange.
I mean, the problem with this, with the taint that this particular unit is putting on the police, is that it's tainting police work, and that in itself. So I was shortly after I announced, I went to a little cocktail hour with a bunch of police chiefs from around the state, and I asked, how does all this stuff in Norfolk County impact you guys? And to a one, they said, this is horrible. This is not who we are. This is not who we are as a job, as a profession. And this is mortifying, and it shouldn't be happening. So this is not I don't think, I would really like to think that what's going on in Norfolk County in that particular unit is not typical.
So another question keeps coming up. At one point during the Karen Reed trial, there was an inverted video that was introduced. It was very misleading. I feel like it was intentionally misleading. And then basically the defense said, hey, this video is inverted and you didn't tell us what's going on here. What would you do if an ADA or a Mass State Police put in an inverted video to deceive people?
So this is one of those situations, those examples that I think your viewers and you have more granular knowledge than me. So I didn't see this or hear any of this exchange or read about it. But if any prosecutor intentionally is deceiving someone, that is certainly a disciplinary offense, if not a bar discipline offense as well, if not as well as potentially a termination defense. Termination offense.
Excellent. One of the questions I have for you specifically is I've been involved in a lot of campaigns over the years. I know how hard it is to beat an incumbent, even one like this that is, under scandal. He's got a lot of money. He's got a lot of history with a lot of people over the years. How are you going to win this campaign? What's your game plan for this?
So, I mean, it's one of the main reasons I started early was for exactly this reason. So it's very unusual. Most people I talk to are like, "Oh, are you running? Is the election 2 weeks from now?" I'm like, no. We're like 2 years. But that's, so the reason is because I'm an outsider, I need to get to know everybody. There's a 33, 35 towns, something like that in Norfolk County, and I need to, go pound the pavement and knock on doors and meet them. Number one. Number two, I need that time to fundraise to try to remotely get to where he is. Yeah. So that, and I think also one of the other reasons I started this early was because I just have this sense that we, meaning everyone who lives in Norfolk County, is very confused and unsettled and upset. And that kind of, we've lost trust in the system that we have. And you need to know now that there is an alternative, that this is not normal, but there is a better way. We know the way, and that I can do this. The other thing I was going to say is that Norfolk County, when I was in the Suffolk DA's office, the Norfolk County DA's office was considered to be on the cutting edge of prosecution. It was doing all kinds of new and great things with domestic violence prosecutions, sexual assault prosecutions. The head of its sexual assault and domestic violence unit went on to become a judge. And so we know that even Norfolk County, we know how to do this right. So I thought it was really important to tell people in kind of an attempt to make people feel a little bit calmer, like that you just have to wait 2 years and then we can get this fixed. So yeah, and I think people say that a lot, that it's really hard to beat incumbents, but I think it's also really hard to beat a voting to it's really hard to beat voters who are upset.
Yeah, it's what I was excited to see this, the website. You got a great website. I hope people check it out. I got it on the screen right now. There's 741 people watching on YouTube right now. I hope people check it out. I linked it in the chat. Did I pin it? I hope I did. Oh, you know what? I might not have pinned it. I'll check that. But at the end of the chat, everyone, if you haven't, make sure you check out her website, DjunaPerkins.com. And on the top right, you can donate. I want to see some donations tonight. I'm definitely donating. I hope people are going to donate to this campaign, and let's send a message, just like we raise money for Karen Reed and Aiden Carney. Let's raise some money, Djuna for Justice tonight. What do you have any final thoughts that you want to share or anything? Like, because I imagine there are other issues besides Karen Reed that you're running on as well. There are other things that you want to discuss tonight, Djuna.
Yeah, I think that Norfolk County is ready to have a 21st century district attorney's office. I think it deserves the best law office in the county, and I think we can get it. I think by setting high standards of integrity and professionalism and transparency as much as possible, I think we can get there. The other thing I want to say is, a lot of the work of the district attorney has to take place behind closed doors. You have to, because you can't compromise investigations. You can't make statements that materially prejudice the defendant. And so for that reason, you really, really have to trust the person who's doing this job. And so I think, that trust, integrity, and fairness, I think I have the depth and breadth of experience that I can bring to the table and make it happen.
And what you said to make like a modern day district attorney's office, what does that entail? Like, because I think there is a feeling that this district attorney's office is like from the 1940s. So what does a modern district attorney's office, what does that mean? What does that entail?
So I think in part it means being very user friendly and for victims of crime. It means being open to new kinds of sentencing recommendations, sentencing that is both holds people accountable, but also tries to break cycles of poverty and addiction, and also really it restores justice. I mean, most victims of crime, the primary thing they actually want is validation that what they say happened to them actually did happen. That is a huge piece. And we don't get it. We don't get enough of that. I think that there's a place for restorative justice in all kinds of crimes. If crime victims want that, I think we could I think I think the website should be updated. People should be able to get information about their cases right on the website. There should be statistics published on the website about the kinds of crimes that are prosecuted, who's being prosecuted, what the outcomes are. I think all that should be transparent. Wherever you can be transparent, you should be transparent. You know, but it's really kind of simple things like just being able to find out, you know, who your victim witness advocate or your ADA is, and being able to communicate with them easily and directly. Yeah, so I think those are all part of it. Those are some ideas. And also, I'm not sure that the Norfolk DA's office has an unsolved crimes unit. I was looking at the homicide unit. I don't see a description of that. I haven't heard that they do. So that's definitely something that I would add as well.
Excellent. Someone mentioned body cameras. I know DAs don't decide whether town police use body cameras, but in general, where do you stand on that? Because that's something that's coming up in Canton where they don't have body cameras. And the money seems to be misappropriated in that town for the police. They don't have money for body cameras, but they got officers making $340,000 a year. What do you think about body cameras?
I think that body cameras are probably good because they protect officers also. So if you are, you know, following your standards of care and you have and you're recording and it shows that you're following the standards of care, it protects you from lawsuits and complaints, and you know, the evidence is right there. So if you're doing your job, you shouldn't feel worried about that.
Question: do you need volunteers to hold signs and help you campaign out?
Yeah, sure. We haven't started standouts yet, but you know, you can sign up to volunteer on the website as well.
Excellent. We got the website up. It's pinned in the chat. I see people saying they're going to donate tonight, which is awesome. This was I'm glad that you came on tonight. Was this your first like live interview? I'm guessing like on a streaming show or podcast, something like that.
It was the first on a podcast. Yes, it was not the first live interview, but certainly the longest one.
Awesome. And I would suggest you do because I have a feeling, just, you know, a lot of times when guests come on our show, they're like tonight, there are other YouTube shows watching, and I have a feeling you may get hit up on other YouTube shows. Is that something that you would, you know, do as part of the campaign? I think it's really smart. I think it would help you. Is that something you'll be doing?
I mean, you know, the more the word gets out, the better.
Yeah, I would even suggest that you start your own YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah. It's a good idea.
Just, you know, if no one's hitting you up that week, you just go up and speak about something for 5-10 minutes, you know, because that's how you keep people, you know, checking you out all the time. And I think I'm just amazed by YouTube, how powerful it really is. And I know tonight that you will get some support, and I hope it continues. I hope people support you in the campaign. When is the election? You said 2 years. Is that November
26th?
So it's November 2026. Is there a primary before that? Is that like August or something?
September, yes.
September. Okay. So we're looking at September 2026. Wow.
Yes.
So we got a long time, and you're going to be there throughout the whole thing. I would love to have you back on the show too, like every month or so, just to keep covering it. Yeah, that would be awesome. Well, I really appreciate you being here tonight, Djuna. I'm wondering if the audience has any other questions that I missed, because sometimes I did see a lot of questions come in, but here we go. Here we'll throw this one up. If elected, are you planning on conducting regular press conferences?
Or to use a venue to keep. So, I mean, typically most prosecutors will do press conferences on major cases. So, you know, like if you remember the Marathon bombing, there was a huge press conference with every law enforcement agency. So generally the significant ones, yeah, there are press conferences. That's normal.
They want to know where you got your blazer.
You know, I get so many compliments on this blazer, which is why I'm wearing it for you.
I like it. I might have to get a white blazer. I wear the same one every show. People notice that.
It's teal. It's my color.
See, I thought it was white. I'm colorblind. Yeah, it does look teal. It does look teal. This is a good question. There's an issue with the court in terms of the seating for the jurors? Would you consider rearranging the major courtroom there so the jurors can actually see the witnesses?
I certainly would advocate that it be done, but it's not the DA's. The trial court is in charge of the actual physical space that courts are in. I definitely think that there's much better ways to arrange courts and more flexible, kind of 21st century ways, not only to arrange courts but to hold trials. But that's probably I'm pretty avant-garde that way.
Yeah, I would love to make another suggestion too. Like as a member of the press, I felt like I totally got shut out. I didn't even bother trying to get in that courtroom because the way that they set it up, you had to basically commit to like 24 hours. Like, so only people that have no other jobs, which, I have another job that I do,
Right.
or people who have, corporate, money to be able to pay someone to sit
Right.
would get to go in the courtroom. So
I
I
mean,
think the press thing, I would love to see like a press lottery if they ever have a situation like that again, instead of actually making, there were moms that were sitting out there like in the middle of the night just to get in the courtroom to do their job, which I feel is like really.
I mean, but I think part of the issue is that many of our courthouses are in historic buildings. And so those historic buildings were definitely not built in the 21st century. And so the buildings on the outside are really nice, but the courtrooms inside can be very uncomfortable and
Definitely.
unfriendly.
There's another question here. They wanted you to clarify your position on Turtle Boy's case. I don't know if you really can, if you know that much about it, but do you want
Right.
to say
So
anything about that?
yeah, I kind of can't because he has a pending criminal case. So I don't want to do the thing that I've just accused the current district attorney of doing. So that's why, yeah, I don't think I should comment on his case. But I mean, I guess I will say that I think that citizen engagement in general is important. You do have the right to ask your elected officials what they're doing and why. And, you know, so that that's just true. And if you have if you have credible information about a pending crime, you should report it to the right people, and it should be taken seriously.
Another question that came in. What are the first 5 things you would do if you were elected?
So after congratulating myself, you mean? So the first thing that happens typically is you set up a transition team, and it's kind of like people who have prior experience in the various roles that you need to kind of put your executive staff together, and then so that takes place over a few months before you actually take office, and then once I actually started, I think the first thing I would want to do is meet with every single member of the office and see, what their skill level is, what their commitment to adhering to these new standards will be. It may be that there's plenty of them that wish things were better and they've been frustrated, and so I want to see that. But it also may be that there are people who shouldn't be there, and if that's the case, then that's the case.
Someone's asking about police training.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you could do to, improve it?
So there's lots of police training given by police, and sometimes that training, DAs are asked to participate to help out. Certainly, I'd be supportive of any any trainings of police, and I think there's regular meetings between DAs and police chiefs, and those things can be recommended there as well. I mean, the relationship between police and prosecutors is really interesting. It's kind of I like to think about it as it's like a good friend who's going to have your back when your back needs to be when you need the support you do, and you have to work together. But they're also going to call you out when you do something wrong. The district attorney has to be independent, but also work together with the police, and that sometimes creates tension.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Ralph Martin. Like, I think people were mentioning him in the chat tonight because that movie, that documentary, Trial 4, have you seen that?
Yes.
I mean, it showed the tension that was happening there between the
Yes.
police and DA and how it
And
kind of can affect things, even when the DA is trying to do the right thing.
yes, and that's why I know about that tension is because I have lived it. And um, you know, I've worked with some really great detectives who are really intelligent, really, really empathetic, and and we worked really well together. And then sometimes, unfortunately, it doesn't go that way. But you have to be, as district attorney, you have to be able to push back when you need to.
It's a question. If you were elected, would you be open to an audit of the DA's office, including forfeiture funds?
Yeah. I mean, I don't see why not. Yeah, I mean, there are already, the budget of the DA's office is public already. I mean, I don't know how granular it gets into like line items of, what's there, but yeah, why not?
One of the criticisms from some law enforcement reformers, I think I'm trying to remember the name of the group. They're led by former Mass State Police, actually, and they've brought it up. They're the first group that brought it up to my attention, but it's become like a frequent kind of discussion on this show. And this is the question: thoughts and benefits and drawbacks of the Mass State Police investigators being embedded with the DA's office.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that? Is that an issue? Because that has been brought up as an issue in terms of Mass State Police not having
Mm-hmm.
control of their officers because they're embedded with the DA. It's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
them having two different bosses and they
Mm-hmm.
play it off against each other. What is your viewpoint on that?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. So in Suffolk. Suffolk was the only county. Boston is the only city in the state that has its own dedicated homicide unit, detectives unit. And then, of course, all the rest of they also have other detectives, and so they work directly with you. But then in the smaller towns like Chelsea and Winthrop and Revere, we had those state police units as well. And most of the other so all the other towns around Massachusetts have these embedded units. And I also worked with an embedded unit in the AG's office because we had them there. I mean, yeah, there's a potential that you get too close, that the staff of the DA's office maybe gets a little too close to the troopers, and that can compromise your judgment. That's certainly a thing, which maybe means it is another argument for having it, at the very least, having all new people in the state police side. But I think you do need to keep, to a certain extent, you do need to keep some professional boundaries between the two.
Excellent. So many good answers tonight. I'm very happy that you came on. The audience seems very happy. I think you're going to get some donations tonight.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming down tonight and being on our show. We look forward to see what you do with your campaign. And thank you so much for being here tonight. Djuna Perkins. The website, again, is Djuna Perkins. It's DJUNA Perkins.com. People definitely check it out. Join if you want to help out. You can support. There's a donate button on the top right hand side. Please donate tonight. Thank you so much for being here tonight, Djuna.
Thanks so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
And we'll see you again soon.
All right. Take care.
You too. That was Djuna Perkins. I want to thank everyone who's been watching tonight. Hopefully we asked all the questions you wanted. I tried. I think that was pretty good. Just going to check the Cash App and the Venmo. I don't know when our next show is going to be, but I kind of like that. That was like a quick 1 hour. It didn't need to be extended. I actually did hit up Bederow in them last second, but I don't think they jumped in, which is fine. I think giving them a night off is good. I just wanted to jump in and ask some good questions. I hope people donate. I'm definitely going to make a donation to her. I liked her. I don't see any Venmo or Cash App tonight, but that's fine. But I want to thank everyone who's been watching and supporting. 704. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube if you haven't. We're at, what are we at now? 39,000 subscribers. That's amazing. I can't believe that we're at 39,000 on YouTube. I want to get to 40 and then 50. Those are big numbers. So help us out. About half of you who listen never subscribe. Help us out tonight. Get us up to 40,000. I know we're not going to hit it tonight, but get us a little closer. I just want to see it continue to go up. Thank you so much to Please Pass the Pepper. She sent $1.99. She said, best wishes, #justice for all. Thank you so much. Oh, you know what? Bederow is here. Bederow just showed up. Maybe I should bring him up. I see Djuna's still here too. Attorney Bederow, what's going on?
How are you?
Were you here earlier? Did I miss you?
No, I just jumped in after. I didn't want to take away from the platform. That was very interesting. Very
What did you
important.
think about Djuna tonight?
It must be refreshing for people to hear from real prosecutors with real concepts of understanding the role of a prosecutor, the role of due process, the role of justice. I mean, I don't know anything about her individually in terms of saying anything other than that was appropriate. I mean, that's what you would expect a seasoned prosecutor to say, the way you would expect a seasoned prosecutor to act. And certainly for the people who live in Norfolk County, it's good to have options beyond what's going on in that office now, what's going on in the state police that live in that office. And that's important. And I think a lot of these questions that you asked, which were answered well, they ought to be asked to Michael Morrissey too. And he's not going to be able to answer them because, in terms of taking donations, in terms of using private email to have ex parte communications with judges, in terms of, things we've talked about before that I know Ms. Perkins addressed, such as even if you initially believe that this was a meritorious prosecution, that's fine. But when they got the materials from the feds, 3,000 pages of expert opinions that this could not have been a car accident in the way that the DA alleged, you got the Proctor text, you learned about, Brian Higgins and Brian Albert tossing their phones the day before they got a preservation letter. You could go on and on and on. How do you not, at a minimum, reassess and reevaluate and say, maybe we're wrong? And what these people do, and this is part of being a hack, they just double down, full steam ahead, and look for ways to work around the problem, and as opposed to addressing the problem, which is maybe this is not a good case. Maybe we were wrong. Let's reevaluate. They don't do that. People should be asking Morrissey questions about Hank Brennan, and like she said, it doesn't mean he's a bad lawyer. It doesn't mean he's a bad guy. By all accounts, he's a very good lawyer, but he's from outside the office. And as we've talked about before, I heard Ms. Perkins reference, there's no conflict that's being alleged here. So why the hell are they bringing in a ringer at taxpayer expense? Because nobody in the Norfolk DA's office is either capable or willing to prosecute this case. These are red flags that it's time for Morrissey to go. And it's encouraging to hear people coming on with you and talking about it. But I think that any of the candidates for this office should be out there more, speak louder, inform the public who they are, and speak about the issues and draw the distinctions between them and, Morrissey, whether it relates to possible corruption, terrible decisions in prosecution, stuffing your pockets with subordinates' money, which is, anyone who does this for a living knows, is a major lead up and possible contributing cause to corruption. It leads to favors. It leads to being beholden. It leads to being too close. It leads to living in a fraternity house kind of behavior, too close. And then, you saw that come out even in the text messages at the Karen Reed trial about how these guys all think they're living in a fraternity house. I did live in a fraternity house. It's just an expression in college. The point is, the way the public views these things, you see those messages and you wonder, how could that happen? And, she's going to run for office and be more polite. So, but the words are fumigate. When you're talking about prosecutors who stare at this evidence, which blows up their case, and they don't even reassess or reevaluate, she's being polite. Those are called zombies. All the things that we've been talking about for months and months.
So were you impressed by her tonight? I felt kind of encouraged by her.
Yeah, sure. I was, but I also think this is the norm in experienced, seasoned, and professional former prosecutors who want to aspire to the role of being chief prosecutor. I mean, I think Morrissey and his people, they're kind of the outliers. I mean, most prosecutors and former prosecutors and people who want that job have the same level of experience and whatnot. I mean, I think the ideas that I've espoused, that she's espoused, it's not rocket science. It's basic.
Okay.
It's basic, having a basic sense of justice, fairness in prosecution, going where the evidence leads you rather than trying to jam the square peg in the round hole, or reaching a conclusion first and finding out how do I get there. It's having an honest assessment of what the evidence is rather than looking for end arounds about evidence you don't like. I mean, you could go on and on. So yeah, it was refreshing. I think people should pay attention to it. Go to the website, look her up, look up the other people as well, and just. But there's a reason why people are announcing they're running for office
2 years out. You know what's funny too? You mentioned Morrissey. Because I didn't think of it until you said that. Like, you know, normally someone like him I would ask to come on the show, but I would just like exclude him because I know he'll never come on the show. But I'm gonna ask him actually.
Why not?
Why not?
I mean,
let's ask him.
I mean, that's journalism. I mean, I think any view, whether they like you or don't like you, or you agree or disagree.
Let's see if Morrissey can sit here for an hour and answer our questions like she just did.
Right. I mean, he won't, obviously.
No, he won't. But then we'll use it against him now. I mean, I love it. That's like I gotta ask him now.
But also, you know, the other, you know, so-called mainstream reporters who, I don't mean that disparagingly, but you know, that term is kind of dying out, I think, with all the new media. But the reporters who have been covering this for the mainstream television and newsprint media, they should be asking these questions of Morrissey. Whether it's
should.
Ted Daniels of the world, the Sue O'Connells of the world, all these other people should be asking him the obvious questions. I mean, I don't think a single one asked, why are you bringing in a ringer on a retrial without alleging a conflict of interest? Who's in charge here? You know, he says he's in charge, but you're still having Lally work with him. So they say, what does that mean? You know, do they report to you? Can he dismiss this case tomorrow without your input? Why is he doing this? Is there no one in your office who can do this? All kinds of things. These are questions that I think the media missed and just focused on, oh, they got Whitey Bulger's former lawyer. That's interesting. But, you know, as often happens, I think they buried the lead here. The lead here is, why the hell are they doing this? Not that they did. Why?
Right? Like, that makes no sense. It makes zero sense.
The biggest indictment I think you could make of your own office. And I think these candidates for DA should be pouncing on that. And it doesn't have to be personal. They know each other. That's normal. Lawyers, real lawyers know real lawyers all the time. But it's a Morrissey problem. I mean, you have steadfastly said you're going to retry this case, but only by using more federal tax dollars to bring in someone else. And that's crazy unless there is an actual conflict, and there's not, according to them. So why are we doing this?
I like that she said she you know, comes from working from two guys who decided not to take contributions from their underlings, and she wouldn't take money like Morrissey does.
Any prosecutor who takes money or takes campaign activity or compels campaign activity from underlings is a red flag to possible corruption or other things. No true prosecutor who is fully dedicated to justice without favor, without anything else, would literally expect their subordinate employees to stuff their pockets with money. Because what if there are other ones in the office who don't? For whatever, are they on the you know, are they on the list? Thank you, James. and what does that also say about the people who do? And are they now, you know, my guys? Are they beholden to me for jobs? I mean, you know, we know Lally gave money to Morrissey. I think we read about. Does he now feel obligated? I mean, is that why he took this just seemingly ridiculous case and tried it for all intents and purposes alone, which is another just bizarre issue? These state police guys who gave money to him, does that mean you look the other way when they might be involved in some kind of malfeasance or some kind of sketchiness or lack of investigative zeal? I mean, for example, do they not criticize them because of that? I mean, somebody like Proctor, Tully, Buchanan, these other guys, I don't know which of those were giving money, but Does the DA look the other way when they just kind of say, it's probably a hit and run, and we didn't go to the house, but it doesn't matter, and we didn't do this. We didn't have to do that, and say, okay, are we ordering Chinese for lunch today? I mean, if that's the relationship here, you come into the fundraiser and I'm expecting your check. This is how corruption, laziness, and injustice germinates.
Maz is in the chat too. The 3Ms are all part of this show tonight. I love it. Love it. Maz, you could jump up now if you want. It's up to you. You don't have to. You're not last second thing going on. It's funny because someone's like, you got to ask Bederow if he thinks that RICO charges are coming. That's a big question that people keep asking me.
I don't know. I mean,
you haven't changed your viewpoint on that at all, have you?
I mean, you'll know if it happens, and if it doesn't happen, you won't know, because the federal government is not in the habit of announcing that we investigated certain individuals for potential crimes and decided not to charge them. Now, you may see certain individuals who are under public suspicion who are informed by the government that they're not going to be prosecuted. They may go outside, scream and yell, punch the table, and say, I'm not being charged. This is a witch hunt and all of that. But in terms of what's going on with the feds and all of these people, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a journalist. I don't have those kind of sources. I don't ask for those kind of sources. And the reality is, who knows anyway? The feds just don't tell people that kind of stuff. They just don't.
Someone says, ask her if she uses a burner email. I think we kind of did. She thought that was weird too. She definitely.
This is why people need to ask Morrissey. There is never an excuse to be sending email on a personal server to a bunch of judges like that. There is never an excuse to be sending an email on a personal server to a bunch of judges about an individual who you recused yourself and actually hired another special prosecutor at taxpayer expense days before. There is never an excuse to be using a private email server after you've recused yourself, speaking to judges about a person you shouldn't be investigating in an ex parte fashion, in which that is happening, where the judge who denies a protective order is kind of being criticized, and then the case ends up in front of him, a couple of weeks later. So these questions really, these are ground balls for anybody running for DA. These are ground balls, I think, for anyone probably over the age of 17. No, you shouldn't do that. They know what a public record is and how to access them. But the questions really, they're easy for a candidate to ask. But the real journalistic work, I think, lies in asking Morrissey why he was doing that.
I hope some journalists start asking those questions. I mean, you'd think that would already happen. That's what I was.
Yeah.
As soon as those letters went out, I was like, I hope they really dive into the details. Because I'm like, they're just going to report, some letters went out, blah, 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 blah. Next news day, move on. But they should be asking those questions. Absolutely. Yeah. If I was full-time, if I had access, I would be down there asking them the question every friggin' day.
Problem with mainstream media today, and is that me dinging? Sorry.
Yeah, that's you.
I thought I was on.
This is me. Oh, yeah, nah. I think it's you. Yeah.
The problem with the mainstream media today is they report developments, mostly, not all of them, but they don't dig into why and the how and what it means. They just report literally the news that's thrown in front of them. And of course, that news is often thrown in front of them by the people they're reporting on, or people similarly related to them or from the other side. And there's not that much digging that goes into it. So, I think in years past, what you'd see from whether it be investigative journalists or whomever, they wouldn't just accept, okay, the news is Whitey Bulger's lawyer is going to prosecute the case. And that became the news. The real news is, what the hell is going on?
Why is that going on?
The Norfolk DA's office, that they can't find anyone capable or willing. And why are my tax dollars being spent on this? We pay your salary and all your other people's salary to do exactly this. What are you doing?
Yeah, really.
That, as far as I know.
Ted Daniels seems like the only one that actually does any investigating. Like he's
Yeah.
the besides Aiden, of course. Yeah, this was. I'm glad she came on tonight.
Yeah.
I just and I
That's a
hope
great.
she gets a big bump, and I hope that she realizes that all these YouTube shows. I'd love to see her and Melanie Little next. I hope Melanie has her on. I heard she was in the chat tonight. I hope that Djuna just just takes it to the people like over and over again, because that's what needs to happen.
Yeah, and there's another. I don't forget his name, but there's someone else who's announced. I don't remember his name. I think he also was a
Former
self.
prosecutor. Yep.
I don't know much about him, but he also should be speaking out and educating voters and people about who he is, and the differences and contrasts that he would have with Morrissey, how he would run the office. None of these people are ever going to criticize certain cases. They're never going to tell you what I would do with the Karen Reed case.
No, they can't.
No, they can't. That's just not appropriate either. But you don't have to be commenting about cases to know about. You don't use private email. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't have to be commenting on a specific case to say what happens when the federal government dumps 3,000 pages that's full of exculpatory material, and would you at least scratch your head, take a pause, and reevaluate? I mean, that's a ground ball. The answer is yes. In Morrissey's DA's office, the answer is, what's for lunch? So.
Question: when can we expect the next Bederow letter? We asked that last time you were on. We don't know. We don't know if there'll be another one. He said, right? We'll see what happens.
Those letters serve a purpose when needed to seek remedy from a prosecutor. They're not that rare, actually. It's normal to make demands of prosecutors and then wait for their answers and act accordingly. What makes them unique in this case is that some of the underlying facts are anything but common. I mean,
let me ask you about the letters. Have you had a response? Have they responded to the Bederow letters at all?
I don't want to talk about what they do, but I think it would be fair to say that they would respond, including to the court file. So I would direct people
to the court filings
to look for that. I wouldn't talk about correspondence and communications lawyer to lawyer, but I think one might expect, given the nature of the issues addressed, the demands made, and also the significance, that the court know what's going on. I mean, that's the primary reason why anyone would file with the court. You want the court to see what's going on in advance of a very important appearance in early December. And the only way to do that is to, CC the court. And I would think that both sides would agree, given the issues, the serious issues that are being addressed, that would be a wise thing.
Oh, I like how the audience likes. Earlier they liked Djuna's jacket, and now they like you and salmon.
It is kind of salmon. Yeah, Vineyard Vines, that's one of their things.
We're learning words here, like that. Salmon is now a color.
Yeah,
it's like a new thing.
It's pinkish. It's fuchsia-esque. Is that a word? It's
fuchsia-esque.
It's in that. It's in
we'll
that.
Make up words.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to bring up tonight or discuss that you haven't gotten out there?
No, I just tuned in to watch because I think that's a great get journalistically, to have somebody in a county that is just under assault for all kinds of things that make no sense, to have her speak as the others. I think one of the more interesting things that they need to dig in, and I think she addressed it a little bit, maybe cautiously, which is understandable, some of these ideas about, witness intimidation and what that means. But, I'd like to see a more constitutional analysis of that, because that has no bearing on any particular fact pattern or any particular case. And I mean, even just today was, Rubber Ducky Gate, which is the ultimate example of a statute running amok or being exploited by a prosecutor. I mean, it's not great for the district attorney that, national media is covering a case of a man who is a local business owner who was indicted for putting, a rubber duck and some allegedly counterfeit bills around town, expressing his viewpoint on a criminal case that is in the public domain, and which he, like many others, has a strong opinion. So, I don't think the candidate should be ducking, no pun intended. Who am I kidding? Full pun intended. Should be ducking issues related to the constitutionality of statutes where a particular state police unit in a particular DA's office, both of whom are under assault for just making a mockery out of justice, are using this statute as a weapon. I mean, this is what, the word of the day is lawfare, right? You hear about that, and that's a form of this. And I don't mean that in a political sense. I'm not talking about national politics. I'm talking about they're taking a witness intimidation statute and they're looking for people who share a certain view, which just happens to be anti to the view of the DA and the state police, and running around after being contacted by very powerful people in town who have them on speed dial, right? Whether they be local business owners or other people, and running around investing incredible resources in snatching up dumpster diving and executing all kinds of search warrants because some guy put ducks around town. And he says, you know what? I think Karen Reed is innocent. I think she got framed. That's my opinion. And I just kind of, followed something that Alan Jackson said in a summation about ducks that we've all said in summations, by the way, about, walking like a duck and quacking like a duck. It's a duck. That's just called using common sense. That's what that means. Like it tends to be true if you think it's true, if the evidence supports it. That's all that is. The idea that guy could, end up in custody by causing emotional harm to witnesses. And yet at the same time, there are people on Twitter talking about, I think Karen Reed's going to be killed if she's acquitted, and you people are lunatics, or screaming and yelling in her face outside of a courtroom, that she's a killer, talking about her lifestyle, saying terrible things about her, as well as other individuals. And none of that, apparently in the eyes of the state police or the local police, constitutes witness intimidation. Well, now you're getting into content-based speech, which is, anathema to the First Amendment. You can't prosecute exclusively on viewpoint. I mean, you'd think that would be something the police would respect and understand, and that the DA's office would respect and understand. And instead, people are getting hauled into court for, rubber duckies and telling witnesses to tell the truth. And I know there was a lot of discussion over the weekend at the Dateline thing where somebody from the, so-called other side. I mean, I hate that whole thing. There's sides.
The sister of Paul O'Keefe's wife.
Right. And the reality is she shouldn't be arrested. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. No,
but
she shouldn't be. But she did basically the same thing that someone was arrested for.
Point. The fact that you even have to juxtapose that against other things and say, what's the difference? And if the answer is, well, she supports the position of the Norfolk DA and the state police that are embedded in his office, 90% of whom are under suspension, on the verge of being terminated, or some other kind of internal affairs investigation. These are not things that are good. And these are things that really implicate whether we're talking about content regulation, which, again, if that's the basis for a prosecution, that's going to violate the First Amendment. Not to mention the statute itself is just unconstitutional because for a couple of reasons. When you can come up with a legal definition of emotional harm and what the standard is, let us know how far, how much, how far, how come conduct that relates to someone who's just on the street is apparently not criminal, but if you somehow anoint them a witness, or, the third cousin of your wife's uncle, his best friend who's actually related to you, is part of a case, so you become covered by that way, and somebody hurts your feelings, if that warrants prosecution, that doesn't certainly seem right. So there's all kinds of problems with this.
There sure are. Thank God you're involved. That's all we're all saying now.
Maybe.
As we call you, Bederow, Attorney Bederow.
Oh, that's just
Mark.
That's wire stuff. That's
Yeah,
okay.
He was. Oh, speaking of which, he was in the chat tonight, Joe, and he was going after you for the tickets. I mean, you're at the Patriots game, and then next thing you know, you get your like front row. I noticed all the Celtics. Who was some of the? You took your kids to the Celtics banner getting raised. Who were some of the Celtics that you came in contact with your kids?
So we went last night to the the banner raising. The whole family went, and yes, we had incredible seats. It's true. Yes, they were on the floor, literally. It is what it is. It was good stuff. But in the early parts where we were positioning for a while, it's right out of the tunnel where everyone comes out. So anyone from either team really at some point would come on. But by the time you leave the game at night, I mean, you're sitting right by the owners, 2 seats down from Mike Gorman, the announcer who just retired. And by the end of the night, one of the owners, Steve Haglugo, walked by and let the boy try on his ring, like the championship ring that they handed out last night. It's bigger than his head. But that was incredible.
You let your kid try that on?
Yeah, no, I actually put up a picture of him, like he wearing one of the owner's rings.
You don't think he was worried that you're gonna run off with it?
No, I don't
really trust you. You're a kid.
And we were sitting literally next to the Knicks bench, and so that was fascinating to hear how they're talking. And then when the game ends, he gets to fist bump the guys as they're walking off. It's kind of cool. Although the Celtics went a different way, so it was all Knicks. But you like to see Jalen Brunson and those guys. It was cool for him. So
very cool. And they just named a bridge after Bill Russell, right?
Yeah.
Boston did.
Yeah. Well, Bill Russell, of course, is like the man. But
greatest.
Yeah, so it was a great time. And as far as Joe, he, whatever, he's just jealous because, he's a Sixers fan and
they got nothing. What do they got?
They're playing right now. I'm watching them on the TV.
When's the last time they won something? Dr. J?
Dr. J.
Was that it? Was that
Dr. J? And actually, he'll appreciate this. We got a good look at Maurice Cheeks last night, who I guess is
I remember him.
One of the Knicks assistant coach. He's old, obviously now, but that's how far back you have to go for the Philadelphia stuff. So yeah, he's objecting.
Dr. J was pretty great. Julius Erving. He was like
that objection is overruled. The Sixers are going nowhere, and you know that, I know that, and we all know that. But he's good spirit.
Yeah, he's got Allen Iverson, I think, is his guy.
Yeah,
that was a while ago too.
Yep, it was fun.
I guess there's a comment for you came up. We'll read it. How does Bederow suggest to ask about the corruption surrounding William O'Connell going forward with all candidates? She denied any knowledge of him.
Which is surprising. I mean, I look, when you're running for office, I would think you're going to research up and down your opponent's weaknesses or alleged corruption or whatever. So, I mean, that was a little surprising. But I mean, I don't know much about him either. Of course, I'm not running for DA and don't care. But I think certainly it is 2 years out, in all fairness, and she's just starting. And I think her and the other candidates will have to learn.
Yeah.
There's, I mean, how to ask her about it. I don't think she's lying when they, the question says.
No, I think she just didn't know.
She didn't know. But I don't know who this guy is other than what I've heard online. I don't know whether it's true or not true. I mean, I have no knowledge or opinion. I mean, look, as far as these things that go on in Norfolk County, you just shake your head. That doesn't mean this is true or untrue, but there are so many things that happen there that just are stunning. You don't know what to believe or not to believe. And nothing sounds crazy on its face when it involves these people.
Excellent. Well, I thank you for joining us, jumping on, Attorney Bederow, last minute. It's always fun with you.
Yeah, no, I wanted to watch this. That's a great get. I mean, that has value, I think, to people who are interested in all the stuff that you've been covering, and has consequence to what could happen with an election. So that definitely.
We're going to continue to have her on too. So next time I'd like to have you both on together. That would be good.
Yeah, I mean that's up to her. Obviously, I don't know.
Oh
that
yeah.
what
Oh
we
yeah,
want.
that's true too. Yeah. Because
But
there may be a little of a conflict. That's right. I didn't,
yeah, I mean, that's for other people to decide. But I think
Exactly.
the more the candidates talk and engage, that's only good. And the more you bring to attention the misdeeds or just head shaking moves by that office, it's a good thing for the voters to be more informed.
Exactly. I think next time I have her on, I'm going to do like open phone lines, have people ask questions, which would be good.
Yeah, the worst thing she could say is I'm just not comfortable answering for whatever reason. I mean, that's the worst thing she could say.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
A lot of times when they get asked a question, they don't know. I notice like the best candidates, that's when they look into it. That's when they're like, oh, you know what? I don't know that. I'm going to look into it. And next time they come back, they know all about it. So hopefully she's like that too.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent. I want to thank you again. Thank you so much, Attorney Bederow. Mark Bederow, check him out. Bederow Law on Twitter. Thank you so much. And good luck in court with all your cases. You got other cases coming up too, don't you?
Yeah, some of them are not ripe they're a little sensitive, but yeah. And the other ones just tend to be not of public interest most are. I mean, that's the reality. Even when you do this for a living, most things are kind of bread and butter as far as public interest, and then you run into these ones that are crazy for one reason or another, and then other not everything also involves court as well. In fact, everyone should say a prayer tonight. I have a very, very ill client in a non-criminal matter who is a wonderful person who is literally fighting for their life at this moment. So we could use
pray for them. What could you mind? They say their first name?
No, I'd rather not.
Say okay.
Yeah, it's really hoping for the best here.
We'll say a prayer. Thank you so much, Attorney Mark Bederow.
Okay, we'll talk.
Yes, definitely. Have a great night.
Bye.
Bye. We're the Young Jerks. I want to thank everyone who's listening. There's a super chat I didn't get to yet from Tammy. She said, when can we expect? Oh, no, that wasn't the one I wanted to put up. I already put that one up. This is the one. From Dewey, she said, when can we talk about the police audit meetings? I'm not sure. Probably soon. I'll hit up Kathleen and Rita again. I think they're the best ones to talk about what's been going on there. It's interesting. They seem like they have a firm that's going to be selected. Bob is still crazy, out of his mind. I think, thank you for the comment, Dewey. Definitely want to get back to that. We definitely will try to cover that. We do have a lot to get to. A lot of guests that I want to get in. And I've been getting some requests to go on other shows too. I've been kind of putting them off, but I definitely want to be on some other shows as well. All right. I think I did see a Venmo come in. Just want to check. Yeah. Nancy sent $20. She says, thanks for all you do on Venmo. Thank you so much, Nancy. That's so kind of you. Thank you very much. Thank you for donating. I want to thank everyone who's been watching tonight. Thank you for the questions. You guys had some good questions tonight. Ask Morrissey to be on your show. Exactly. That's exactly why I'm going to ask him. I am definitely going to ask him. I can't wait to write that email up. I'm wondering if I should actually make a phone call on that one. He's got a new press guy. Maybe should I send an email or should I actually call? What do you guys think? What do you think would be the best way to ask Morrissey to come on our show? To call the new press guy? Say, I want Morrissey to come on the show and explain why he sent Tully after me. Yeah. I want you to explain your last couple of years, Michael Morrissey, and why anyone would ever consider re-electing you for office. Someone says email with a follow-up call. Was that Glenn? Yeah, Glenn. That's probably the best bet. I probably will do the email with a follow-up call because the email's probably not getting responded to. It would be hilarious if they just responded and said, "No, we're not interested." I would love that one. You missed Djuna's interview. It was good. Check her out. I liked Djuna tonight. She was good. And she had a little, what do you call it? Internet issue. And she dealt with it. She was moving around. She made it work. So she was very adaptable. Collect call. Collect call. Hi, it's a collect call from Suge Knight. All right. I think I'm out of here, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching and supporting. I want to know, because I'm definitely making a donation tonight to Djuna, her campaign. I want to know how many of you are making a donation to her tonight. Do you feel comfortable donating to her campaign at this point? I guess that's my fun. I want to see your comments. What do you think? Are you gonna throw some money down on the Djuna Perkins for DA? I'm gonna definitely donate. Darcy says definitely. Yes, definitely. Darcy says. I think it's just. Oh wait, Ann's gonna donate too. I am donating. Ann says. Thank you so much, Ann. And Jessica, so far that's 3, 4, 5. Shock and Horror is going to donate. Yeah, I think we should all donate. That sends a message too. That sends a message to her that coming on these shows matters. That it gets people to donate. It gets people to notice. So. Someone said, no, I throw money at you. You could throw it at her. Glenn said, thank you, Glenn. I really appreciate it. You do donate quite often. You are one of the best donators. Thank you so much, Glenn. Glenn's always buying everyone memberships here. Oh, speaking of which, we are going to do a membership show. I got something. Let me see if I can grab it. Hold on one second. I don't want you to see it. There we go. I got some new stickers. I got some smaller stickers this time. And all they are is the Young Jerks. And then it's like the YouTube and the Facebook Live on the bottom. So I'm going to have some of these for on our new members or even the older members. So a lot of people have already gotten the old stickers we used to have. We ran out of them. I gave out so many of them. So I got a bunch. I got like 1,000 of these. I think I'm going to get another 1,000 maybe or something of the Young Jelly one too. So I'm going to have those for members, and we're definitely going to do some membership shows. Not sure when, though. I'm not sure when our next show is. We'll have another show, obviously, but I just don't know when. You'll probably put that on your beater. I'd love to see it on your beater. I'm waiting for the day that I'm on the North Shore driving and I see one of these on a car. I know they're out there because I've seen pictures of them. I've seen people take pictures and send them, but I've never actually seen one live. I want to just be driving one day and see the Young Jerk sticker. I see Turtle Boy stickers sometimes on cars. It's very exciting. I get excited for him when I see them. I want to see mine now. All right. I'm going to head out. I thank you guys so much. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, dudes. Thank you, everybody. I want a magnet. I do need some magnets. I think there may be some on our the print on demand thing options that we have, but I don't think they're very good. I need to create some good magnets. That's a good idea. Maybe I should get some magnets. I got to figure out, where do I get magnets? That's a good question. Where can I get a good design and get the magnets done? Car magnets. I see what you're talking about. I was thinking about the refrigerator ones. We'll work on it. Yeah, I want to thank everybody who's been supporting, watching, joining us. Thank you so much. And I'm not sure. I have no idea when our next show is. But there will be one, guarantee you. Talk to Aiden about car magnets. I should talk to him about his merch where he gets everything printed. All right, I'm going to head out. I feel like I'm forgetting to say something. Donation made. Thank you, Shelly. Shelly made a donation tonight. Awesome. I love it. I love it. So again, in the chat, top of the chat pinned, you got Djuna Perkins, her website. If you liked what you heard today, I suggest donating. Small donations go a long way. 10, 20, $50 make a big difference. If you could donate to her political campaign. Yeah, I'll see everyone over at Turtle Boy's live stream. Usually it starts at 9, but I thought I saw him say on Twitter he's starting at 9:30 tonight. I'm not sure. You just bought a Young Jerks hat and you like it. It's great. Thank you, Leah. All right, I'm out of here. I'll see everyone very soon. Next show. Yeah, Turtle Boy is, I guess, 9:30 tonight. Have a great night, everyone. We'll see you soon. Thank you so much.